Yeah, DJ Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? We are back again, round 2 for week 12 coming at you now. We're going to break down this NFL DFS main slate. It's the DJ Nation pod powered by the Fantasy Authority. I'm one of your hosts here, Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Joined by the usual suspects. We don't got the full show for you today, the crazy 2-hour show that we had for Thanksgiving, but usual suspects, the Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Rat 13, and my boy Matty Buckets, Matty Gets Money, Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter. Matty, what's good, man? Are you ready for this slate?
I should be asking you what's good. Talking about me being money bags, Mr. That 1,000% ROI on Thanksgiving Thursday. How are we doing over there?
Hey, man, we getting it, dude. The lady's very happy to see that come in.
I'm sure. Right in time for the holidays. Man, and just in time for you to buy her a nice Christmas present.
Man, maybe 2.
Maybe 2. She might get 2 this year.
Exactly. That's why I'm glad we got the 2-part week 12 going here, so we can go strong again on Sunday, get the run back. But no, man, appreciate it. It was a fun Thanksgiving slate. I mean, still got to take advantage of the 2-gamer. I mean, there was still money to be had there. So just shout out for the Zeke fade that paid off. Shout out to Amari Cooper coming through, Texans D coming through, Antonio Gibson coming through. I'm getting ready to put the jersey back there. I can finally get the Bears Mahomes Gad jersey replaced with the Antonio Gibson with Hollister. So that's fun, man. But we gotta talk to the people about how they can get this money here for week 12. And I mean, we've been talking a ton about the slate offline. I know you and Kev have been diving deep into it. I'm kind of just getting into it from the day. It's crazy that it kind of feels like Saturday, but we're recording this on Friday. And so we still got a lot of time, a lot of things to unpack. But the slate is just it's really interesting. We were almost getting used to having a balanced slate, right? With a couple of like 7 games in the afternoon slate. And now we only got 3, and only one of them really is good with KC and Tampa Bay. And so everything else is going to happen on the early slates. And it's just crazy, man. We going through and looking at these prices on DraftKings and how many different ways you can go. It's going to be a fun one. So I'm excited to get into it with you guys. And before we get into it, as always, we're just going to do a little plugs for the people. Shout out to everybody who's been watching us on YouTube. You can see it if you're watching the video right now in the right-hand corner there. Just make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel, liking the videos, commenting. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Kev's takes, yeah, we can keep those in the trash. That's fine. It's all good. But no, man, we appreciate everybody rocking with us. If you guys are listening on your podcasting softwares as well too, make sure you guys are subscribed and downloading the podcast. We appreciate all the support as always. Get into the Slack chat too. Hit up DJ Nation Pod on Twitter or hit up one of us. We can get you guys in there. It's exciting to just talk about the slates, and we're at week 12 already. It's crazy. The year's flying by. So we got a couple more weeks to grind out for you before we get into the playoffs, and we're just enjoying it all. So as we talk about enjoying it all, man, let's talk about this week 12 slate. And as we usually do, I mean, I'll let you guys just kind of, if we want to go into straight to quarterbacks, if we want to talk about what games are sticking out to us and kind of go from there, because it's really interesting what we got here. Kyler Murray and Pat Mahomes are the 2 quarterbacks that are 8K and above. A lot of quarterbacks that you can pay up for this week, with Josh Allen and Justin Herbert being right behind them. Tom Brady in that KC game, is he going to have a bounce back there? We can already, scratch off one of the games. It's Pittsburgh and Baltimore. It looks like is getting moved to Tuesday. So we don't have to, move from Thanksgiving, now move from Sunday to Tuesday. Who knows if it's going to happen or not? Lamar has COVID. Just crazy. I mean, the COVID bug keeps going. Speaking of COVID too, just as we get into the slate further, we got Adam Thielen, who's off of the slate as well too because of COVID. So that could factor in to running back ownership with the one Dalvin Cook, who comes in at 9.5 this week. But I think before we got a lot to unpack here just because of the nature of the slate as opposed to what we were doing on Thursday. But I kind of want to talk just overall as we get into some of these builds. I mean, I feel like it's coming off of the Thanksgiving slate. It was a 2-gamer. People were kind of down on it with the Steelers and Ravens game getting moved off. People played Zeke, like locked him in without, I had a ton of teams that had Zeke on them too. And it just left a bad taste in your mouth. I felt like if you're looking at these running backs who you could pay up for, or looking at spots where you could pay up for, and the same thing with Deshaun too. I mean, Deshaun was chalk. And so you think about that just in your head. Okay, he was the highest priced quarterback. And while people look to get pivots on Thanksgiving with Dalton, Stafford, Smith, even though this is 11-game slate, I still think we're looking at the same thing here. Like, you're looking at Kyler Murray. This guy smashed all year, but he's going against New England on the road and is dealing with the shoulder injury. So can people feel comfortable paying up for him? People are not going to want to play Patty Mahomes. And Matty, I know you definitely want to talk about that. You were talking about that on Monday when the slate was released, but he's 8K going against the Tampa Bay defense on the road as well. And what more does he have to do? He's putting up an MVP season here with games that are just bananas. So what he's been able to accomplish, getting weapons back now with Sammy Watkins coming back, but people will still want to avoid him. And then you go down to Josh Allen, who is shaping up to be the chalk by every, thing that we're seeing right now at 7,600, going against a Chargers team that I think has allowed like 28 or more points in their past however many games. I know the Jets got points on them. The Jaguars got points on them. Just crazy what this defense is allowing. They're banged up. And so as we just talk about the slate, right, let's get into it. And like, you just paying up for quarterback, right? I mean, or can you trust the guys like Matt Ryan? Can you trust Taysom Hill? Can you trust Derek Carr? These are guys that people are going to play. Danny Jones. I've seen a lot of talk about him. Giants against Cincinnati. We know Cincinnati's lost Joe Burrow. That game could be crazy. Maybe there's more favorable scripts for Danny Dimes. So, Matty, talk to me about the quarterback position and kind of how you're feeling about it on the Week 12 slate.
Yeah, I think your kind of outlook on the slate is exactly how I feel about it. You mentioned there's a lot of guys who have monster upside here, exactly what we saw on Thursday, like Deshaun Watson has, and then everybody else is just kind of mediocre at best below those guys. And it's like, yeah, you want to be different, but at the same time, when these guys go for 35 to 40 DraftKings points, you've got to have them on your teams. And at that point, you just need to be different with the rest of your build. So I'm looking at the top this week. There's a handful of guys that I have heavy interest in, but there's also a couple names down low that, I think could maybe match them. So at the top, you mentioned Kyler Murray. I think nobody's going to play him, seeing he's against New England. So he's definitely a low-owned, interesting pivot, and he's really been the Lamar Jackson of last year for this year. So you're going to get a guy who's going to run all around the field, going to approach 100 rush yards on a weekly basis. Is probably going to be lower owned this week because, like you mentioned, Josh Allen's going to be a lot chalkier than him at a cheaper price. Herbert's going to carry ownership on the other side of that game. Patrick Mahomes, for good reason, against Tampa Bay, which I love this week. Tampa's they're a pass funnel defense. They are top run defense in the league. Chiefs are ranking at the highest pass rate in the league, especially in neutral situations. So there really is no reason for the Chiefs to try to run the ball here, and they haven't tried to run the ball this year really at all outside of the first couple of weeks. So I just don't see a way. Like you go back and look at Mahomes' passing attempts last year. He was consistently in the low 30s, low to mid 30s, with a handful of games over 40 attempts. And this year it's the exact opposite. He's gotten all of his games are in the 40 to 50 range, and then there's only a handful in the 30s. So don't be afraid of paying 8K for Mahomes. He's got legit 400-yard, 5-touchdown upside here. In which, if he does that, you better have him and just make the rest of your team a little bit different from the chalky builds. But yeah, so those four guys at the top really stand out to me. And then you've got all the way down at 5,800. I'm not really sure why Ryan Tannehill is priced that low. We know Tannehill just from last year, his efficiency has, his upside is still up there with the best. He can go out on a weekly basis and score 30 plus DraftKings points. He's got rushing upside. He's got weapons. AJ Brown, Corey Davis, Jonnu, like there's weapons on that offense for him. And the Colts defense has been one of the better run defensive units in the league. So while they will be without one of their top run stuffers and Buckner, and Henry will get a boost from that. I still do like Tannehill in that game because Tennessee's defense has been horrible this year, and the Colts offense is going to put up points. So I think we're going to see a bit of a shootout. 2 weeks ago, these teams played each other, and Tannehill went right down the field on the very first drive of the game and scored very easily. And then it ended up missing A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown dropped what would have been a 70-yard touchdown down the sideline. So there was still a lot of points left out there on that field in that game, and they still combined for 51 points. So I think you're looking at a legit game that could go for 65 to 70 points there. Would not be shocked if that game ends like 35, 30, 31 or something like that. So I really like Tannehill this week. And then the other cheap guy, if we get Tua out this week and Myles Gaskin doesn't play, I really like Fitzpatrick against the Jets. Because I think if Gaskin sits and Fitzpatrick plays, I don't think they're just going to lean on Matt Breida and DeAndre Washington and Patrick Laird. I think they just say, okay, Fitz, you're our best option. The Jets are another pass funnel. They're better against the run. Their cornerbacks are awful. And, I mean, you've got Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki and Jakeem Grant you can throw to. Why not just go and do that? It's the path of least resistance. So we've seen Fitz. He smashed weeks 2 through week 7. He was consistently putting up 25 DraftKings points a game. I have no issue playing him at 5,500 to save $2,500 off of Patrick Mahomes if that's the route you want to go. It's going to be a really tight quarterback pool for me this week. But there's really, I don't know if I even play. If I end up playing Josh Allen or Herbert because they're priced right there with Mahomes, and I just think there's no way Mahomes underproduces in this matchup just because of being a pass funnel and the pass-heavy nature of the Chiefs this year. So I think he's legit, going to approach close to 400 yards, and he's going to throw 4+ touchdowns. So I really love Mahomes this week. I'm planting my flag on him. He gets Sammy Watkins back, which is another boost to him. So it's going to be – I think I'm going to be all in Mahomes at the top, and then Tannehill and maybe Fitzpatrick if I'm paying down.
Yeah, that's fair, Matty. And you, like I said, you've been beating the drum for Mahomes, especially if he's going to be going under-owned than he should be. And I feel like that, people just don't want to play Mahomes, and I'm kind of looking at it too, as like I said, I just started diving in today. So I really have not done too much as what I usually do for my article and the video and things of that nature, as much prepared as I usually would be at this time of the week. But I do think it comes down to, he's been able to spread the wealth, so to speak, to the tune of that people are not putting up outside of like Kelsey. I think Kelsey had the multi-touchdown game, but like Hill's got a whole bunch of, 1 touchdown game scores. Hardman was getting a score. Robinson's getting a score. Watkins back. Clyde Edwards-Helaire can score. Le'Veon Bell can score. So it's like when you're talking about game stacking, people are not really comfortable with having a quarterback like that where they can't, I'm one that preaches get your quarterback with narrow distribution of targets, where the ball's going. And that kind of has some interest in me with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater this week. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at the upside that it offers, like it really doesn't matter, right? Like the play is the play. And we talk about this all the time, like quarterback scoring is just kind of so skewed. And if you're looking at it and, Josh Allen, a good game for him, like that could be, 29, 33 points, exactly, somewhere in that range. And, you could be sitting there at the end and maybe, Diggs, who people will pair him with, he doesn't reach what he could get. And people have Mahomes and then Hill in the late games. And, nobody has the PMR left to have those two players. And you could be skyrocketing up the board if Hill catches 2 of those, which is fully, within his range of outcomes. And so I do think that because of that kind of thinking, that it's on the late slate, and I just don't want to. I want to have my points now and not have to worry about it. People will not be playing Mahomes as much, so I do get that, and I also like the Tannehill call as well too. Matty, you've been beating the drum for Tannehill as well a lot this season, and especially when he's going under owned. We know that this offense likes to put up points. They've been putting up 30 points, 20 something points consistently. So it is interesting, and he has good options to kind of pair him with. Kev, you're the KC guy, man. I mean, is Matt going to steal your Pat Mahomes thunder this week, or you going to ride that wave too into week 12 slate, or you looking elsewhere to kind of get your builds going here at the quarterback position?
And Patrick Mahomes is always in play. Always in play. There's not a week that he's not in play. There's not a defense that he could face that I would ever be nervous about him playing him in. And it doesn't matter who they're playing. So I don't care about this Tampa Bay pass defense. We saw this Tampa Bay pass defense been torn, especially the last couple of weeks. I mean, Jared Goff just went out there and threw all over them.
Right.
I mean, so
yeah. Right.
And really, in reality, I mean, this is a must-win game, really for the Bucs, because if they lose this, I mean, you're looking at the possibility of them not even making the playoffs, because I believe that would put them right at 500. And so, I mean, this is kind of a must-win game for them. Where the Chiefs, not really as much, but still, this is a game the Chiefs are going to get up for, getting to play Tom Brady in this offense. So, I think if I'm going to play Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to run him in a couple different stacks. Because one, I will never play Tyreek and Kelsey in the same lineup. It is very, 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 very rare that they go off together. Usually, it's one or the other. It's never both. And so, for me, Sammy Watkins, I think it makes for an excellent play this week at 4,700. He's somebody that's going to see a lot of targets. Before he got hurt, him and Tyreek were pretty much neck and neck in terms of targets. Tyreek, in the four games that Sammy Watkins was healthy in before he left with injury, Sammy Watkins was right there in targets, and Tyreek Hill only had one game with double-digit targets in those 4 games. Now, it's a small sample size, and it's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill can break a slate whenever. But I think Sammy Watkins makes a lot of sense. Like, he's kind of really has been kind of the cog that makes really this entire offense really go from like elite to like just nuclear, because of what he's able to bring to the table, because he's such a excellent yards after the catch guy. They get him in space. They like to use him underneath, and it really opens things up for Tyreek Hill, because defenses aren't as worried about, Demarcus Robinson or McCole Hardman, right? So all their focus goes on Tyreek and Travis Kelce at that side. Now, once you add Sammy Watkins into the mix, like, that's where everything really opens up. And so I love Patrick Mahomes. I love Patrick Mahomes every single week. I'm never going to, if he's on a slate, I'm making a lineup with him. I mean, it's ridiculous not to, because of his upside. So at 8K, but like I said, if I'm playing him, I'm not playing Hill and Kelsey together. I'm going to split them up and, figure out, who to stack them with. And then, like I said, if I'm running it back, like, I really like Chris Godwin at 6K. Like, that is incredibly too cheap on the other side. Do you guys have any interest on the other side of going Tom Brady at 6,600? I know he doesn't offer much in terms of the rushing ability, but this Chiefs secondary has been kind of torched. None of them have really played excellent. Charvarius Ward last year was kind of their best corner they had. He hasn't played very well this year, especially. I mean, I know he had a broken hand there for a while, but now he's shed the cast, but he still has been beat. Rashad Perriman can certainly be beat. Tyrann Mathieu plays a lot in the slot. He plays over 50% of the snaps in the slot, but he's been awful in terms of coverage so far this year. And so, like, I do think that running it, if you didn't want to play Patrick, if you want to go a little contrary, going Tom Brady at 6,600 and running it back with like Tyreek, I think does make a little bit of sense at his price, because 6,600 is pretty cheap. I don't think a lot of people are going to play Tom Brady. And like I said, I mean, this is a game where we could see 800-900 yards of total offense. Like, because the Chiefs defense just hasn't been great. They haven't been getting pressure on the quarterback. And so that's one way you really kind of beat Tom Brady, is being able to get pressure on him. Because if you don't get pressure on him, and give him a clean pocket, then, that's whenever he kind of explodes. So I do think Tom Brady at 6,600 to leverage off Patrick Mahomes. I don't mind that play. Some of the other options you guys already kind of talked about, like, I did initially kind of have interest in like Derek Carr against Atlanta, but I don't know if they're going to open up the offense, and trying to figure out who to stack him with outside of Darren Waller, I think is really tough to do. And so, you could play Nelson Aguilar, but I don't feel great about that. I definitely don't feel great about playing Henry Ruggs, but and then Daniel Jones is another guy that I really like going against Cincinnati. But again, pace could have something to do with it. I also think that they're not really going to have to open it up that much, but this is a great matchup for them. Daniel Jones has some ability to get out of the pocket and use his legs as well, but I don't think you can go there, because I just don't think unless Brandon Allen figures it out and has a good game, against a pretty underrated Giants defense, like it's going to be hard to trust that. So I think it's kind of slim down below. Like even Baker Mayfield going against Jacksonville, great matchup. But if they can run the ball 45 times, they're going to run the ball 45 times. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. So that's really, it makes it tough to really pay anybody that's really, down there in that range. So for me, I think the cutoff for me is probably Ryan Tannehill at 5,800. I do think Matt Ryan at 5,900 is intriguing, because the Raiders secondary is horrific. You can certainly throw all over them. And I know without Julio, there's going to be concern because Matt Ryan has not played as well without Julio Jones in the offense. But this Raiders defense is so terrible that I don't think that it scares me as much. And I think that's a cheaper price tag than what Matt Ryan normally comes in at. I mean, you usually look at Ryan at 65, 6,600, 5,900. I mean, you play him with Calvin. And then I think that you probably could go, whether it's Zacchaeus or Hayden Hurst, I think you could do that and then run it back with Waller if you want to do that, if you didn't play Hayden Hurst.
Hurst has been, I think, missing practice too, so that's definitely
he's someone that has to monitor
also.
Okay,
yeah. And if he's out, man, that offense gets really, really thin, really fast. With Gurley already out and Julio possibly missing, and I mean, it really from there it comes down to Ridley and Gage, and like you said, Zacchaeus probably would be the third guy.
Which just doesn't make you feel confident at all with Matt Ryan's numbers. I mean, the dude will throw volume. I think that's what you always like about Matt Ryan is that you don't have to worry about him going out there and like having a Kirk Cousins-esque type of game. Like if they're up, they're passing. If they're down, they're passing, especially with Gurley not playing in this game, him being rolled out. They could be leaning on him, but it's just the numbers, like you said, Matty, have not been good. And this is a guy who I have in redraft fantasy, unfortunately, it seems like every year, and have to deal with this on the back end for myself with Julio missing games or Ridley missing games. And it just becomes a frustrating process. And I'm looking at him like Matt Ryan's 5'9". You talked about Ryan Tannehill being right there at 5'8". I like that. I mean, you're only paying $500 more to get a guy like Cam at home against Arizona there. If that game, if we get a good game script there, I can see that paying off. Teddy Bridgewater 6'3", Fitzpatrick 5'5", and then another guy that I want to talk about. And this kind of just came to me. We didn't talk about this offline at all, but is there a chance that Gardner Minshew plays this week? I know he's questionable right now.
They said they don't think. Well, they said they didn't think he was ready. That he possibly could be as a backup quarterback to Mike Glennon. So,
I think they've already named Glennon the starter.
Yeah. Right,
got it. Okay, because that would kind of be some interest for me there.
Do you guys have any interest in Taysom Hill?
No,
I know it's not the best matchup against Denver, but I mean his rushing ability, I think, does give him a little bit of floor. And he threw the ball more than I thought he was going to. Like I did not see him throwing the ball 23 times whenever he started last week. Like I thought it was going to be like a 15, maybe 18 at most in terms of attempts. I figured there was going to be a lot more running. But I mean, I think he should. I mean, I know it was against Atlanta, but I mean the Denver secondary doesn't scare me at all. And with his rushing ability, like it's kind of like it's almost like. It's like a Tim Tebow plus situation. It is really what it kind of feels like with him because they are certainly going to run the ball. He's going to get goal line carries, and obviously which that gives you the 6-point touchdown. 6,200 is a little pricey, and it isn't the best matchup on the road. But with his rush, I mean, if he's going to get, I mean, he could end up getting 10 to 15 rushing attempts in this game. And you throw a couple, run one in, which is certainly possible with him. I mean, he could get you 50 to 70 rushing yards. It really wouldn't shock me one bit. And so at 6,200, I know it's a little bit pricey. And maybe if I did, I would probably either play him with Michael Thomas or I would just run him naked because I think that's also an option. And I know that's what took down the Millie Maker last week was a Taysom Hill naked, but obviously that was a much different price tag at 4,900, I think, on DraftKings versus the 62 now. But his rushing ability alone and the creative ways that they try to use him, let me
ask you this. Do you have any interest in Cam Newton? because to me, they're the exact same player.
I see the difference though that I think with Taysom to Cam, because I do agree with what you're saying, is that Taysom Hill has much better weapons to work with in terms of Michael Thomas, Manny Sanders, and then Alvin Kamara, and so like I think with all the weapons that he does have, I think that makes him such a better play than Cam Newton, because Cam, while obviously you can run him naked as well. Like, do you feel great about any of the options that they have? And the answer is no, in terms of just their weapons that they have. And so with Taysom, I think that's what makes him a little bit more intriguing, with guys with all the weapons that he has. And the fact that he threw the ball 23 times again really surprised me. I did not see that coming. They used him a lot like it's very similar to the way they used Drew Brees, and he did well. I mean, he threw over 200 yards, on those 23 attempts. He didn't have any passing touchdowns. That's because he rushed them both in, which to me really hurts Alvin Kamara. Like, if this is what we're going to continue to see for him, like this kills Alvin Kamara right now, because he is taking away. He's not looking to check down to Alvin Kamara like Drew Brees does. He is somebody that is going to take off and run whenever they get an opportunity, and they're going to run more design runs with him. And so I do think that hurts Alvin Kamara in terms of overall ceiling and everything else. But I don't know. I just thought Taysom is a little interesting at 6,200 because of his rushing upside that he brings.
Kev, it's just so thin of a play, in the sense that, like, with the guys who are at the top who can like surpass the number that he's putting up. Like, I felt like he had a pretty decent game there, regardless of the fumble that he had, which his turnover issues are a thing. Like, Taysom Hill is a problem. I don't know how this guy could even be thought to be, a competent starter, but that's another conversation for another day. But I think everything went white for him last week. Granted, he was a lower price tag too, and he got 25. Like, what if those rushing touchdowns don't go to him? Like, what if they give it to Murray? What if they give it to Kamara? And he's not passing touchdowns. Like, I don't think we've seen what he can do, like, proven as a passer. And you're like, playing in Denver, it just is that's just one of the toughest places for quarterbacks to play in, man. I feel like, and he's going into his second start of the year. I just don't like this game at all. And I feel like if you're playing Taysom, like, you need kind of a fast-paced environment. You need to be able to rely on that game script kind of going the over. And I'm not sure what the over-under is on it. It's got to be somewhere in the low 40s on that game. It just doesn't seem like a player
I think it's like 43 or 44. It's not high.
Yeah, that seems right. And so I would much rather love this game, Kev, if it was like in New Orleans, in the Dome, and and he's 6,200. Like, and so the way that we're going to be looking to build our teams this week, I think he kind of caps the upside that we could have. Because you're not stacking them, right, Kev? Like, I don't think you can.
I think if I was going to play him, it would probably be as, like I said, run him naked or something like that. But
and at that point,
running him back with somebody else from Denver.
Yeah, and at that point, he has to rush in 2 touchdowns for him to hit his ceiling, because he's not going to go out and pass for 4, right? And at 6,200, you're going to need somebody who throws at least 3. But if he throws 3, he can run 1 in. But I don't even see him throwing 3. Because then you're asking for a lot of deep completions because of the nature of his pass attempts, which I don't even know. Like, Michael Thomas, he runs a lot of short routes. And then, I guess Sanders stretches the field a little bit. But, like, who else out there is there really their deep threat that kind of fits with Taysom's, strong arm that wants to stretch it down the field, right? They don't really have, like, a Deshaun Jackson type guy that is just like, okay, let me run this go route and, throw it as far as you can and I'll run under it.
Traquan's 4.3. He runs 4.3. He certainly has the speed to be able to do that. Now, do they use Traquan in that way? Not really. I don't know why they don't. It doesn't make any fucking sense.
Because they got dusty ass Drew Brees throwing the ball to him most of the time.
Yeah.
And it's like I saw somebody said that they were breaking down the Saints film and that they had really used Taysom in a similar capacity as to how they used Brees in terms of the pass attempts that he had. He did throw a couple down the field, which we haven't really seen Brees do. But outside of that, it was a lot of short passes. Like, Michael Thomas did have a good day, but outside of the passes, it was just Taysom running all over the place.
The only thing I would say would be this is that while he only threw the ball 23 times, 233 yards is good. I would say that they didn't really need to do anything, right? Because they pretty controlled the game the entire game, which very well could happen again this week against Denver's offense.
Yeah,
but
and Judy's out too, right?
If they were to push them a little bit,
I didn't know that.
I do think that we could probably see more and then open him up a little bit more. I don't know. I just thought he was I wasn't planning on spending 10 minutes talking about Taysom Hill, but at 6,200, I don't know. I just think it's an interesting price point for him. I know it's probably a little bit higher than I would want to. If he was like 58, 57, maybe I'd be a little bit more interested. But I am intrigued by him because I think that he could have a legit 30-point upside.
Yeah, Judy's got a Q tag. He's got an Achilles and ankles or something with his foot, so that's definitely something to monitor.
You definitely have to be playing him with somebody else from the Denver side. If you think Taysom is putting up 25 to 30.
For me, just how I'm breaking down the slate, I just think that Tennessee Indy has a chance to go absolutely nuclear on both sides. Like, I legit think both offenses could put up 30 points there. And so, we've seen Ryan Tannehill have a little bit of a rushing upside too. So, I don't know. I'm just going to save the 400 and play the game that I think could go to the moon. And that's Tennessee and Indy.
Before we move on to running back, Matty, what are you doing with Tennessee and Indy if Phillip Rivers somehow doesn't play with this toe injury that he's listed as questionable with? Because if it's Brissett,
I am going to plan on Phillip Rivers is playing.
Okay, fair enough.
Don't put that.
That's all you need to say.
Yeah, that would.
That's fair enough. That's all you need to say.
That would change things because Indy is dealing with a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, which they haven't really had to deal with this year. And their defense has been somewhat good while they have played a lot of bad teams. So I think, I was on Aaron Rodgers last week, who had a really good game against Indy, and the Packers really should have won that game. But, the Indy pass D is not what people think it is because of the strength of schedule that they've had. They haven't really played anybody, and they've got some okay corners like Xavier Rhodes. That dude got dusted all last year in Minnesota. Like, he's not a top corner anymore, and he's, consistently going up against number one wide receivers. And I just think that, there's value to attack Indy through the air, and they're missing their best run stopping defensive lineman. So I really think Tennessee can score there. If Rivers doesn't play, that definitely hurts the game overall. But at the same time, Tennessee hasn't stopped anybody on defense. Their defense is one of the bottom 3 defensive units in the league. Like, you pull up any game, and I guarantee you Tennessee is giving up more than 25 points a game. So shout out Will. Don't put that evil on me. Yeah, Ryan. Keep that bad juju out of here. So
we just got to cover all the bases. I just want to make sure.
It's a valid question. I mean, the real question is, who do you run it back with, right? Because Indy is so awful to pick and choose, and there's really only 2 options because I'm not paying $6K for Jonathan Taylor. I'm just going to, probably take a shot on Nyheim Hines at 4,600 and just hope that it's the Nyheim Hines game and not the Jonathan Taylor game. And then Michael Pittman's the other one that's, has.
Oh, really I thought you were going to say somebody else.
No, I can't play any of their tight ends. I can't play T.Y. Hilton. Pittman's starting to carve out. Who? Trey Burton?
He's 3,900. He's 3,900. T.Y. is.
Oh, T.Y.? No, I can't play T.Y.
Okay, fair enough.
He's just hasn't had a big enough role, and Pittman's really started to come in and after his injury, and he's starting to carve out a role there. So I think it's going to be Nyheim Hines would be my run back, just because the Colts have gone, and this is a good segue into running backs. Which there are not really any running backs to play this week outside of Dalvin and Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. But the Colts have really gone with a hot hand approach. And Kev, I know in our chat earlier today, you kind of mentioned that Jonathan Taylor looks like he's taken over the backfield. Well, that's really was only last game, because just 2 weeks ago is when they played Tennessee, and that was the Nyheim Hines breakout game, which we have seen him, every 3 or 4 weeks, Hines has this massive game. And it just seems to be a hot hand approach that they're running with. And I'm just going to play the cheaper guy that's likely lower owned and just hope it works out. It's not really a conviction play. Like, I don't have anything that's telling me, oh, this is a Nyheim Hines week, other than the fact that he doesn't really lose out from it being a shootout as much as Jonathan Taylor does. Like if the Colts get from behind, I think Hines has a better pass catching upside, and he would be the guy that they look to more often. So that's just kind of how I'm leaning into it. I don't think really either's a bad play. I just probably will not have the salary to get to Jonathan Taylor at $6K. But yeah, outside of him, Dalvin Cook at the top. Don't really need to say much against him. Him against Carolina, that's an obvious one. And then we just talked about Derrick Henry going up against the Colts, missing their top defensive lineman against the rush. So I think you're getting a lot of rush attempts and a lot of goal line carries between Dalvin and Derrick Henry if you pay up for those two guys. So
I think the most interesting thing of this week is it could end up being all these 4K running backs that we may end up getting. And I guess that's probably where the conversation, in my opinion, should start, because we have Todd Gurley, who's already been ruled out. And so that means Brian Hill and I guess Ito Smith to some extent will be the running backs there against for the Raiders, which on paper looks like a great matchup. We have Salvon Ahmed, who's already been ruled out, and then Myles Gaskin. We're waiting to hear news, which would then be Matt Breida at 4K or possibly DeAndre Washington. And then you also have Josh Jacobs, who practiced in full, I think, on Friday, and now he's down to limited because of a hip injury, and he may not play, which would open up Devontae Booker at 4K. I know we kind of talked about this offline, but if he does, if all those things come to fruition and we have all those 4K options, how would you guys rank them? I would probably rank them Booker 1 and then
everybody else.
Yeah, because for me, like I know like Matt Breida, like it looks interesting against the Jets because especially because it's the Jets, but the Jets have actually been quietly good against the run.
Yep.
You know, like I know people aren't going to want to hear that, and when people hear the Jets, they automatically think their entire team is just god awful.
Yeah,
but
really
they have
secondary.
Yeah, but their front has been really good. Quentin Williams has been excellent this year. I mean, he's a stud, but. So I don't feel great. And I don't know if it's going to be Matt Breida or if it's going to be DeAndre Washington at this point.
And so that kind of goes back to our discussion when we were talking about Mike Davis at 4K in kind of a bad matchup against whoever he was playing. And Kev, you had some concern there. But for me, it's I'm only going to – Tampa, that's right. And so for me, like regardless of how cheap somebody is, I need them to be in a role where I know that they can get a lot of touches and score a lot of points. Because even if they're 4K and they give me 8 points, that doesn't mean no good. And so, like we mentioned Brian Hill, there's a chance Ito Smith could steal touches. Quadre Olison could steal touches. We don't know if Gaskin's playing, but if he's out, you've now got Laird, Breida, and Washington. And none of those three guys really scream workhorse to me. And I think it's going to be more of a committee. And then in Las Vegas is where the one spot where Booker has really started to cut into Josh Jacobs' role a little bit. And I think it's more so, the Raiders don't want to throw a ton, but and they don't want to give Jacobs 30 carries a game. But I mean, we've seen Booker carry the ball almost 10 times a game. And he's even had a game where he carried the ball 16 times. So I think he would be the clear-cut number one option in that offense, which is not something we can say about these other value options that we would possibly get. So I agree. I think Booker is the clear number one down there at 4K if we get him, if Jacobs is out. Other than that, I don't know that I'll end up on a 4K running back this week, just because if they get you 10 points, like they're not going to even come close to what Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Kareem Hunt do. Like Kareem Hunt is even a better play than those guys at 5,600.
Oh my God!
Because he's actually seen all of the red zone work for Cleveland in the games that Nick Chubb has been active. So it's been like Kareem Hunt gets like 66% of the opportunities, and Chubb gets like 33%. So it really is, an interesting spot for Kareem Hunt against Jacksonville, who has been bad against good running backs, and they don't really have a good offense to keep up with Cleveland. So there's going to be a lot of rushing attempts on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and with Brian Hill, we've seen this scenario play out. They did it last year, and like everybody was fucking hyped to play Brian Hill last year whenever the same thing happened, and he did fucking absolutely nothing. And people started tilting their face off because he did absolutely jack shit. And I don't even think they had Ito Smith when that happened last year, because Ito Smith got hurt right before Devonta Freeman went down. And so it was really just Brian Hill's backfield, and he still did absolutely nothing with it. And so I don't think it's as nearly as good of a spot as people think that it is in terms of the running back position. But we'll also have to see with Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey, they have not ruled him out yet. He is still questionable. It doesn't sound like he's going to play. Yeah, and I actually think there's a much better chance that Austin Eckler plays than Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey seems pretty slim because I think they're on bye next week, and so it doesn't really make a ton of sense. They're already, they're not. I don't think they're going to the playoffs, so there's really no point running them out there. But there is the opportunity because he has practiced on a limited basis all week. But Eckler at 6,100, that would be super interesting at that price tag against that defense if he plays, because it doesn't make any sense that he's not going to play, because we've seen all these videos that he's posting, and then he's talking about, like in that video that he posted or that he was on Twitch with, basically said that he's done everything he possibly could to try to like re-injure himself to see if he could take it. And he's had zero. He said he's felt nothing, zero injury. He's completely healthy. So I don't know what the point of it is holding him out for. Like, what are you doing? Like, why is he not out there if he's able to go? But I guess they're also out of it. So.
Yeah, and Eckler's kind of in the same boat as McCaffrey, right? Playing on an awful team. Like, they're not just going to run him out there if he's like 70%. Like, if he's playing, you just can assume that he's as close to 100% as he's going to be. And you just have faith that, that he's going to get his full workload and not going to share time, which is exactly what we saw with McCaffrey a couple of weeks ago before he got hurt again. He was dominating the touches, even though Mike Davis had looked kind of good when McCaffrey had been out. So, it's just when you play on a bad team and a star comes back, you just assume that star is fully healthy because there's no reason for them to rush him back. So if Eckler is in this week, he'll probably be one of my highest owned running backs.
And why is Wayne Gallman not just a smash play this week? Can anybody tell me that?
Because I can play
Wayne Gallman. Because
it's Wayne Gallman 1, and I can play Kareem Hunt for $500 more. And Kareem Hunt will get more rush attempts.
I don't think he will
have more red zone carries than Gallman will.
I don't think he will.
I think he will.
I
think both Chubb and Hunt are going to clear the 20 carry mark.
I think Wayne Gallman will too.
But you're going to need Gallman to score 2 touchdowns for him to pay off, because he does not catch any passes. At least
in terms of fantasy points over the last 4 weeks that he's played, he's the number 3 fantasy running back over the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks that he's played.
How many
and those are good matchups that he has there. But this is a great matchup that he gets against Cincinnati.
Yeah, touchdown in every game.
Yeah. He needs touchdowns. He needs touchdowns. Yeah.
Oh, of course. But is there a reason to believe that he won't get a touchdown against Cincinnati? I mean, he could score 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. I mean, at the price tag, and I get it, it's Kareem Hunt, but like, I feel like that you're right. But I think that when you look at Wayne Gallman, I think 20 to 25 touches is certainly in the range of possibilities.
It's in the range of possibilities.
And where I think that Kareem Hunt is more lies in the 15 to 20, which is still great, which is still good. He's going to get pass catching work.
Stop. That it's way
15 to 20 touches is excellent for there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's not a bad projection.
But 5 of those for Hunt is going to come through the air, whereas one of them might, if you're lucky, is going to be through the air for Gallman. Like, he has to go for 100 yards and 2 scores to burn you in a tournament.
So you don't think there's any – because here's where I think that it could hurt Kareem Hunt, is that I think that Nick Chubb could just go absolutely nuclear, and then Kareem Hunt doesn't have to – they don't have to run Kareem Hunt as much. Like, because let's be honest, like, Kareem Hunt has had a pretty large workload this year. You're playing Jacksonville. You're not worried about Jacksonville really keeping up with you. And – I think where you could almost give Kareem Hunt like a little bit of, would be surprised if we come back and we see Kareem Hunt get 12 touches in this game, because they didn't need him, and they just let Nick Chubb go ham in this game, and Nick Chubb rushes for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's where so for me, like, and I get where you're coming from, and I get the pass catching upside and stuff like that, but Wayne Gallman to me just provides a much clearer path where there's not another running back I'm sitting here worrying about. And I know it's Wayne Gallman, and so his name certainly
Alfred
doesn't carry
Morris
the
getting 8
weight.
carries a game.
But Wayne Gallman
tilted when Alfred Morris runs a touchdown.
But I just think with Wayne Gallman, I just think that I think he has a little bit higher ceiling than what Kareem Hunt does in this game.
Kev, we've seen this for now 2 years with what they're doing there. And I mean, especially with Kevin Stefanski being at the helm, like, this team is going to run the ball down your fucking throats, and they're rotating.
No doubt.
Like, Chubb's had chances to smash in games, and he's getting 20 carries in some of these games and still putting up, only 120 yards because they're giving Hunt, 10 to 15 of these carries, and he's being so fucking efficient with them. And it's not happenstance. This dude is fucking good. Like, he's just good at football. And
no doubt. I'm not taking anything away from Kareem Hunt. This isn't that Wayne Gallman's better than Kareem Hunt take. Like, it has nothing to do with that.
But for upside though, you're saying that Gallman has more upside, and I just don't see that when we know that he, even in a backup role, I'm saying that his upside is greater than a guy who's a starter for the Giants. For one, you at least have a competency of knowing that this is a favorable matchup on the ground, and with Chubb and Hunt both, they can get down there in the red zone just on their own, just by running. Like, if Gallman's not getting work done between the 20s, I don't know what Danny Dimes is going to provide to get them into scoring position. You know what I'm saying? Like, we could be saying that if he gets in the red zone, he could score, and I don't disagree with that. But how the fuck are they getting there? Because Cincinnati's actually been pretty good at stopping the deep ball, which is what Danny loves to do, is throw that bomb. So if they're not being efficient with these passes, it could be empty looks.
Yeah, and I will say too, as a counterpoint, if Nick Chubb does have a monster game where he approaches 170 or 180 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns, I guarantee you 2 of those touchdowns came on like 40+ yard runs where it was not inside the red zone where Kareem Hunt's getting all the looks. And so if that happens, that means the Browns scored quickly, and it's just a faster 3 and out on the Jacksonville on the other side. So I think Hunt is still going to get a lot of work, even if Chubb has a monster game. I think they both can have a very good game.
What do you think? What do you think Kareem Hunt's ceiling is? Where would you put it at? His ceiling?
I would probably put it at 25 for DK points.
Yeah,
is that what you're asking for points? I would put it at 25 for points.
Because the highest, the best game he's had all year was 24.1 week 2
against, and that was with Chubb active.
Yes.
Yep. That's probably 25 would have been my answer. I think you can look at realistically 85 to 90 rush yards. So there's 9 points there, 2 touchdowns. That gets you to 21. And then 3 catches for 40 yards is 7. So maybe even 28 points.
Yeah, for me, what comes down to Hunt, and he's getting popular, so I really don't know how much I will have, but I just hate when Kev brings up Wayne Gallman because I fucking hate Wayne Gallman. But I think for me, Kareem Hunt, he's just so mispriced for what they have been doing. I mean, they had been pricing these guys.
I don't know that he is though, because he hasn't, if you look even with when Chubb was out, like he's gotten 14, 19, 18, 7, 19, 9, 16, 9.
Yeah, but look at the price tags they've had on him, Kev. Like last week, he was 6,700. Before that, 6,700. And now we're getting into Chubb being out, but 69, 68. But even to start the season, like 6,100 against Washington, 6,200 against Dallas, weeks 3 and 4, 65. So that's what I'm saying. They've kind of priced them a little bit closer to Chubb, and now all of a sudden you're making them $1,300 or $1,400 cheaper against Jacksonville. Like, what is that? That's what I just feel like he's mispriced based off of Draftkings standards, not maybe for the role, but based on what he's usually been doing. And I want to take advantage of that, because when we're talking about him, if we're talking about him getting like 18, 19, comfortably or whatever, we're looking at in the 3X territory there. And so if he does get multiple touchdowns, like Matty's saying, and does get into that 24, 25 realm, like I don't want to have to guess on Wayne Gallman. Like I don't want to have to guess on fucking, Drake or some of these other cheap guys that people want to play. Taylor. Like, you won't catch me dead playing Taylor. And, maybe I don't know what's going on with Kamara if he's hurt, but if Murray's going to be the only back there, I could see people going there. And I just think that would lower Hunt's ownership even more, and just a good matchup when I'm not even looking at how the Saints are going to be moving the ball with Taysom Hill on the road against Denver. So I just think he could offer some leverage there. I mean, Ronald Jones might see some work here at 6,100 too, going against KC. So he could just be buried in that chart. And he's just still such a good player, man. I mean, his days at KC were fantastic. And what he's been showing at Cleveland as the backup, just taking that role on, has been like, this dude needs to be starting. He's just so good. He's been so efficient on these little touches. Like, if they give him anywhere close to 15 carries and 3 to 4 targets, he's smashing.
And they will, because they have no reason not to. I mean, you're without Odell. Baker hasn't really been that good. They want to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. Jacksonville on the other side is not going to put up points.
Right.
The only other thing I would say too in the Wayne Gallman discussion is that if you look at the matchups that he's had since he started, like they've been the nut fucking worst. I mean, he's gotten 2 against Philly, which Philly has shut down everybody, and he scored 16 and 19 against those two defenses, which that is excellent compared to what they've been giving up. And then Tampa Bay, who's been excellent against the run, he put up 13.2, and then 14.7 against Washington. Like he's had really bad matchups every single week that he's been the starter, and he's still, while he's not seeing as many targets, he's still running the same amount of routes as Kareem Hunt is every game. I mean, or very similar, I should say. I mean, Kareem Hunt, is getting anywhere from 13 to 17, routes he's running, where Wayne Gallman's running anywhere from 10 to 14. So it's not like a huge drastic difference. Right. He's just not being targeted in the same way, because Daniel Jones typically doesn't look as much to target the running back, which was always frustrating with Saquon as well. Yep. But I will just say that, like I said, he's done well in really bad matchups, and this is the first matchup we can say that it's fantastic. And so I still think that, in my opinion, I think he has a higher upside, or I think he has a higher ceiling, but he probably also has a lower floor than what Kareem Hunt does as well.
Absolutely.
So for sure. So,
okay.
I don't know. I guess we'll see, because I mean, I could see Kareem Hunt carrying more ownership than what Wayne Gallman does, and I think that's a mistake.
Right. And I really haven't done enough to look into it. I guess my initial reaction was that people are going to want to attack Cincinnati because Joe Burrow's out and they see Ryan Finley on the other side. So I think people could talk themselves into playing Wayne Gallman, playing Giants D, like not getting to Danny Dimes or anything like that, having to worry about the pass catchers, because they see the work that he's getting is in the red zone, which is true. I just don't want to have to bank on Gallman getting in the red zone and getting those touchdowns, or are we seeing Evan Ingram run an end around, or Sterling Shepard run an end around, or are they going to give Alfred Morris touches? Like, I just don't want to have to fucking guess with Giants scoring, or have to worry about them getting in the red zone for him to score, because I'm looking at his efficiency numbers, Kevin. They just aren't great, like outside between the 20s. Like he's been productive in doing what he needs to do when they get him in a position to score. But I don't know if we really have to worry about him, reaching closer to 100 yards and multiple scores. Are you saying that his ceiling could be in that range, or like 80 to 100 yards?
Oh, I definitely think he could eclipse 100. I mean, against Cincinnati, like that's not something that I don't think that's a crazy place for him to wind up. So I don't know. Like I said, it's something like, but all I'll say is, like I said, that he has done well against really good run defenses, and now this is the first time we're going to see him with not against an elite run defense. There are certainly concerns. It's still fucking Wayne Gallman, no doubt. But the price tag, I guess, is what makes it interesting for me.
Yeah, and he does allow you to get some stuff, and I guess too, it needs to be said, like, who you're playing him with, like, as well too. Like, if you have Dalvin Cook and you can play, Gallman with him, by all means, feel free to do so. If you want to play Chubb and Wayne Gallman and not have to worry about Hunt, like, feel free to do so. Or Derrick Henry, some of these guys who you think are, I can lock myself into 20 points for sure, and then closer even to 30, 40 on the upside swing. And then if I get a Gallman who puts up, 15 to 20 points, I could be chilling with 45, 50 points from my running back positions. That's kind of what you'd be looking for. So I think it matters who you pair them with too. Like, if I see teams that roll out like Wayne Gallman and Brian Hill, or Wayne Gallman and fucking Josh Kelly or something like that to try to get in these high priced dudes, like, I don't think that that's going to be a route you want to go. I think you want to make sure you're pairing him with somebody who you can bank on upside with.
Who would you rather play, Wayne Gallman or Brian Hill?
Oh, I'd rather play Wayne Gallman.
Neither.
That wasn't a question, Matty.
I'm not playing Brian Hill. I can tell you that right now.
I'm not playing Brian Hill.
I will not be putting American dollars on Brian Hill.
If Brian Hill burns me, so be it. We're on to week 13.
Yeah, but I do want to. Oh, go ahead, Kev.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't know if you were gonna jump to wide receiver, but I did want to say, Do you think people are just completely sleeping on Clyde Edwards-Helaire because they think that because of the matchup? But I feel like when you play Kansas City, and especially if you feel like that they're going to be able to throw the ball over them, I think that opens up the run game in a certain way with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like they have been great against the run, no doubt. But at 6,400, he's going to carry virtually no ownership, and I do think there's a path there because again, facing a team like the Rams versus facing a team like the Chiefs, where you're going to throw the ball and the exotic ways that they get people involved, and he is involved as a pass catcher as well. That I think that $6,400 Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's going to have zero ownership whatsoever, even if he only gets you 20, like that's still not going to kill you at his price tag.
I think if he gets you 20, you're loving that. Honestly, if he gets you 20, like. There's things that are going right there. You'll feel good. Slate. Yeah, I agree.
I said there's going to be limited 20s on the slate from running back. So I mean, if he gets you 20, you're. I agree. Like Ryan said, you're doing great. I don't know if Andy Reid's going to galaxy brain himself because the Chiefs, regardless of the matchup, have been at the top of the league in situation neutral pass rate, especially over the last month or so. And then now you get a pass funnel game against Tampa Bay where every team has been throwing against them anyways. I just don't know if Andy Reid's going to be like, well, let me galaxy brain myself. I'm a pass-heavy team and going against a team that faces a lot of pass-heavy offenses because of the funnel, and let me just run the ball this game. Like I don't know. It would be weird for him to do that. But
so some of that though too, you have to over the last month, week 7 and 8, were the Denver and the Jets game where they just manhandled those teams the entire game. They did not need to run.
But Mahomes still smashed.
No doubt. But I'm saying, in those two games, they manhandled. They destroyed both those teams. Like they had no reason to run the football. Like it wasn't anything that they had to do, and they basically pulled Clyde Edwards-Helaire off the field from that. From the really in the second half on. I don't know. Again, is it a some play? Yeah, probably. Not something I would do. Have a ton of exposure to it. But I just think that I think he's a nice at least leverage play off of some of these other guys where he's going to carry zero ownership. Because really for me right now, it's Dalvin Cook is the only running back and Nick Chubb that those two are the only two that I feel 100% fucking lock those dudes in, and I feel great. The rest of them have red flags up and down.
I like Henry. I'll throw Henry into that conversation too.
Yeah, but the only thing that scares the shit out of me is always the same thing that scares the shit out of me with him is just his pass catching upside at his price tag. Yeah. At 7,900, it's so hard to trust playing him. And then I'm sure Alvin Kamara will just absolutely go.
Oh yeah, probably
nobody's playing him.
Of course. Winter's coming, Kev. That Derrick Henry train's never late. It's never too late to get out.
I will say if you're drawing dead from the first 1 p.m. slate and you've got the salary, you play Kamara on whatever late swap you can get in. Because I mean, we saw the same exact thing a couple of weeks ago, right? Where who did everybody play? It was Aaron Jones against Jacksonville or somebody. Everybody played Jones and nobody played Kamara. And Kamara scored 3 touchdowns and went for like 40 points, and nobody played him because everybody played Aaron Jones. And this is the same exact setup here this week. Everybody's going to play Dalvin. Everybody's going to play Chubb. Everybody's going to play Henry probably, and nobody's going to play Kamara. And I do think, part of the reason he didn't see a lot of targets last week is he was playing on a bum ankle, was supposedly the reports. So maybe that's something that factored into him only getting 1 or 2 targets, but I don't know. It does kind of concern me that check down Breeze isn't in there for him. But I mean, he's still going to be used in the red zone.
But he's just going to have like no ownership.
Ownership.
It's gonna be hard to get him as a pivot though, Matty. Like just looking at what you can do, because usually we have guys that you feel comfortable with taking out. The only really 2 players that you would be able to pivot from would be Michael Thomas and Tyreek.
Yeah,
in the flex. True. And I mean, Michael Thomas, I guess I would feel a little bit better about playing Kamara there. Because running back in the flex, if that's where you're going to be having him. is kind of the way to go, unless you do if you had another running back and could do like Watkins pivot down and then pay up for whoever that would be.
Yeah, I probably will not have 3 running backs this week on a team.
Right.
It just doesn't feel like a 3 running back week.
No, I think it kind of really hasn't been a 3 running back year, at least on DraftKings, from what we've been seeing from the winning lineups, at least in the Millie Makers. So you gotta pay for the people you feel confident with in those 2 spots and get the 4 wide receivers right. I do want to talk about Ronald Jones, and then there's another guy that I want to talk about on the afternoon slate as well too, and Raheem Mostert, who has been activated officially to the team and will be questionable. And I just feel like we've seen this multiple times this week. It's been a while for Raheem Mostert because he's been on IR, but he always usually plays on the afternoon slate, and he's always usually a game time decision heading in. And so I think that one of the games he had, maybe it was against Miami. Yeah, Miami, he got the 90 yards. He didn't get a touchdown, but he's good. I mean, he's fucking good. So he's 40 or 5,400. And if he gets rolled in, like going against the Rams there, who are a tough team, but it's Raheem Mostert, I think I would have some interest in getting to him maybe in some slots. But Ronald Jones as well too. The reason I bring this up is because it's Casey on the other side and a team that we've looked to attack with running backs before. And it's so hard to trust what Tampa Bay is going to be able to do. And Leonard Fournette's getting in, even more usage now. And at the run, not only in catching passes. And so if KC goes up big here, or if they get out to a lead early, like I could definitely see them playing Fournette way more than Jones, and just saying that we need to come up points. We need to move the drives, put Fournette in, and Jones could be the odd man out. But if Jones can, hit pay dirt, take a big one back, I don't know. He's 6,100.
The only way that I can see it happening is if they're able to get build a lead against Kansas City, because that is essentially the weeks that he does well, which was against Carolina when they blew Carolina out, is when he scored 28.8 fantasy points, DK points. Other than that, it's 2.4, 4.8, 7.6. These are all games that they were trailing and had and either lost or won at the very end. And so really trusting him is really tough, because he has a lot of really bad weeks. He has 1 week in week 6 where he had 29, and week 4 he had 21, week 5 he had 18, and then he had the 28-point week in week 10. But other than that, it's 2.4, 4.8, 7.6, 10.6, 9.3, 10.7, and 10.2. He is such a boom or bust. And at 6.1, while granted Kansas City has really struggled against the ground, against the run this year, I feel like this is a game that the Chiefs, especially if they get up early, that is going to be Leonard Fournette, and who's going to see the most work, because I do not see a scenario where the Chiefs fall behind dramatically, where they're going to be able to run him into the ground like that. And if he doesn't, then I think that you're going to see a far more of Leonard Fournette and very less of Ronald Jones, especially at the price.
Yeah, I think that too. And I've kind of made a stand as well with Ronald Jones of just not really playing him at all ever. That's not on a showdown slate or anything like that. So I don't think I could do it at the price tag and feel comfortable about it. And just knowing that, things that we could be missing out on from playing in the 1 p.m. games. Like, I don't want to have to sit there and be like, oh man, I hope that Ronald Jones could get me 20.
Did we lose him?
I think he's cutting in and out.
He's freezing.
Well,
I'll finish this sentence. I don't think he wants to be banking on having Ronald Jones getting him 20 to 25 points so that he can hopefully cash with whatever team he's got going there. So, and I agree. I think Fournette would be the play if I was going to play one there.
Yeah, it just feels a little bit too thin for me to even think about trusting Ronald Jones. So I think we could pretty much jump over to the wide receiver position. I don't think we really have anything else we need to talk about the running backs, especially after our 30-minute Wayne Gallman conversation. This has been good. Wayne Gallman, Taysom Hill. Like we've been crushing it with these players that no one's going to play. So anyway, so wide receiver this week, like I think it is. This is where I think the slate's going to be won or lost at, because there's a lot of really good plays at the wide receiver position this week, from top to bottom, really. With DeAndre Hopkins coming in at 8,100, though, I don't know how much I can trust that, because this feels like a game that the Patriots just take away DeAndre Hopkins with Stephon Gilmore out there and at 8,100. But Keenan Allen is a fantastic. The dude has fucking just crushed every single game that he's been in with Justin Herbert, but minus the game that he got hurt, yet he still caught a touchdown in that game. He's 8K. Tyreek Hill, 7,800. Diggs is 7,600. Calvin Ridley is 7,100, which may not have Julio Jones at 6,500, which that makes him a smash play. Justin Jefferson is a smash play with Adam Thielen out. AJ Brown at 6,700, though I will say that he's never done a fucking thing in his career against the Colts. I think he has. I don't think he's eclipsed 45 yards against the Colts in his career. Now, it is a short sample size, but he has not done a whole lot against the Colts in his career. So I think that is something to monitor. And then you have DJ Moore, who at 6,200, he is getting pretty much all the air yards, 45% of the air yards over the last 6 weeks, 24% of the market share or target share. And, he has one of the best weighted opportunity ratings of among any wide receiver. And at his price, I still think that 6,200 is just too cheap for him. And he's somebody that can break the slate if things go his direction. Chris Godwin. Absolutely love Chris Godwin at 6K. I think that is way too cheap for him. I know that there is the struggle with this offense, knowing, is it going to be Mike Evans? Is it going to be Antonio Brown? And Mike Evans at 6,100 is also really cheap. But really, I think he's going to see a lot of Honey Badger, because Honey Badger, like I said, has played 56% of his snaps in the slot, and that is where Chris Godwin primarily runs his routes. And I think that, and like I said, Honey Badger has been really bad. It hasn't really not been very good this year in terms of coverage. So I think 6K Chris Godwin is something that if I'm going to be building a KC stack, like I definitely want to have some run back with Chris Godwin. And then Christian Kirk is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate at 5,800 against New England, where I think most of the attention is going to be on DeAndre Hopkins. I think Christian Kirk can crush at 5,800, and then Cole Beasley at 5,500. Now with John Brown ruled out, like I think that he is certainly an interesting play at that price point, especially without John Brown on the field. Like he could see a massive amount of targets. And then I think from there, once you get a little bit cheaper down in the cheaper range, Darius Slayton makes a little bit of sense at 4,900, though I don't know how many targets he really sees. Mike Williams at 5K, and then we can get down into the 5K or 3K wide receivers. There's a couple guys there, but Sammy Watkins too at 4,700. If you're wanting exposure to this Chiefs offense at 4,700, that's just ridiculously too cheap.
There's a lot to unpack there at wide receiver. I mean, wide receiver is fun, and it's been the position that has been winning people the money, I feel like, all year. And I think as soon as you can, and I'll see what you think here, but I really think as soon as you can get past on what you're doing with Keenan Allen or Diggs, on whether you're taking a stand, you're not playing them, or maybe you're playing them and figuring out your builds around them or what have you. Like once you make those stands, I think you're good. Like, I don't think you need to go crazy on either one of those two players because of their ownerships that they're going to see. I mean, I've played Diggs a ton, like not on Josh Allen teams, just when he's been in good spots to have him. And it's just like he's seen so much of the target share, but at his price, and people are going to feel like they need to have him like in this game with the secondary being banged up for the Chargers. Like, I think I'm just going to take a stand and play Cole Beasley, like on teams that include Josh Allen, don't have him. He's cheaper. There's a lot more that you can do with him. And I want to play Tyreek Hill. Like, I just want to say that, like, I want to play Tyreek Hill on the road in this matchup. Like, if I don't have teams to pat Mahomes, like, I just think he can be the one to go nuclear. He's on the afternoon slate. Like, I'm just going to take a stand. And there's just going to be so many teams I know that people are going to just try and fit these two guys in on their teams. And Keenan Allen, the same thing. Like the dude just had like 19 targets or whatever it was last week, and wasn't a good matchup. It was the nuts matchup, and he's got Buffalo again, and it's a good matchup. He's seen it, same thing with the target share. But like, are we gonna get? I'm sorry, with the Jets, but are we gonna get? If he's not scoring a touchdown, is he going to give us one of these, 10 catches for 96 yards, but no touchdowns for 16? Or are we going to get, 13 and 132 and just one touchdown and it's 34? I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. And I think I want to make a stand on finding salary elsewhere because, as Kev alluded to, there's so many options that are in the mid range that just make a ton of sense. And I want to get the running backs right. Like I want to have a Dalvin. I want to have, guys that I feel confident in of getting me 25 points at the running back position so that I can get 50 points there. And wide receiver, we've talked about it so much, but I just think people just don't think about it enough. Like on DraftKings, catches 100 yards and who's going to score, and then potentially, score more. Because when you're getting that 100-yard bonus from some of these cheap guys, like these cheap guys going for 20, like that just makes such a difference. And these high-tier guys that people want to fit in, and I mean, Devontae Adams, even last week, it did pay off late. But, it was looking like a good stand to take when you don't take these guys who are priced at 8K and above. It usually does not pay off dividends there. So I know I rambled on, Matty, but I wanted to get that in until my internet gets shoddy again. I didn't know if I was going to be able to say anything, but no, man, I think wide receiver definitely is where it's going to be fun for me to make builds this week because I'm just going to make a stand on those two guys outside of game stacking.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, and that's exactly how I'm approaching this week. With how awful running back is, I'm just probably going to eat the chalk at running back. It's just play Dalvin Cook and then just be different with my wide receivers than the field. It's like, can Keenan Allen score only like 13 points? Yes. And if 35% of people have Keenan Allen at 8K and he's got 15 points, and I've got, I paid up for Dalvin, who's got 35. And then I also paid down for like a Corey Davis, who I absolutely love this week at 4,900. And he goes for 100 yards and a touchdown, and he's in the 20 to 25 range. I'm so far ahead of those high-priced wide receivers that, maybe have a decent game. Like maybe Keenan Allen catches 7 passes for 70 yards and doesn't score. That's 14 points. And that's not going to get you there at his price tag with the ceilings we see across the board at the wide receiver position. Like, I really do think that Corey Davis has a monster ceiling here this week. You look at all the team shares for Tennessee, and I know I've talked about this game, but I love this game. And A.J. Brown, he's got a 31% air yard share for the team and a 25% target share. And then you look at Corey Davis, and he's got a 34% air yard share and a 23% target share. So he's literally been the same exact player in terms of team shares that A.J. Brown has been, and you're getting an $1,800 price discount on him. So you've got him. You've got Curtis Samuel is only $200 more at 5,100, and Samuel has put up 17+ in his last 5, except for one game where he only scored 4. But Curtis Samuel has become a main staple of that Carolina offense, and Minnesota's defense has been awful. So I think Curtis Samuel makes a ton of sense. Jamison Crowder, 5,400. You get Sam Darnold back this week, who he averages 11 targets a game with Darnold and only 7 a game with Flacco. That's an extra 4 targets a game, and he regularly goes over 100 yards when Darnold has been his quarterback. So you're talking about guys in here that are either A, can go for 100 yards, B, they can score a touchdown, or C, they can do 100 yards and a touchdown. And
right.
If I've got that kind of upside down in the 4 to 5K range, and you can throw Sammy Watkins in that same bin, I don't need to, play all these 8K wide receivers who are going to be extremely popular. Like, give me Dalvin Cook, and I'll play a bunch of 4 to 5 to 6K wide receivers to pair with him who have a similar upside. And that's to me, the wide receiver position has always been the most volatile because you have these guys these wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s who can go out and have a long touchdown catch and score a touchdown and go over 100 yards. And all of a sudden they've got 25 DraftKings points out of nowhere. I mean, we see it with Valdez-Scantling a couple weeks in a row, right? I mean, he's a deep threat guy who can turn a very small amount of touches into a lot of fantasy points because of the nature of the wide receiver position. Whereas at running back, a cheap guy has to have a lot of volume to get you there, and is reliant on multiple goal line touchdowns. So I'm going to end up just how my builds are taking me is probably paying up at QB for Mahomes, pairing him with one of his top pass catchers in a Sammy Watkins, trying to fit in Dalvin with him, and then running some of these 4 to 5K wide receivers. I think that's going to be where I end up. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on Justin Jefferson with Adam Thielen being ruled out, because I think he's going to get pretty popular.
I think you have to be able to tell yourself a story that Carolina is able to push the Vikings.
So you're only playing him on Teddy
and open things up.
Probably.
I think that makes the most sense because again, he could end up seeing 5 targets in this game, and mainly because that they don't. If they can run the ball, they will. We've seen Kirk Cousins with only 15 pass attempt games. Like that's always the scary thing with him. Now, last week we were able to see Dallas, get out and actually get a lead and actually push them to open the offense up and make them throw. So if Carolina in any way is not able to do that, then Justin Jefferson does not become that great of a play at 6,300, especially with the amount of wide receivers, not just around him, but wide receivers that are a little bit more expensive than him and below him. That I think that is very intriguing because do I play Justin Jefferson at 6,300 or do I find a way to get up to Calvin Ridley, who's 7,100, who has absolutely crushed in games. He's averaging it's 110 yards and a touchdown in games that he gets more than 8 targets in a game in his career. Which without Julio, you could almost bank on that he's got to see that kind of volume. And so I would rather play Calvin Ridley than that. But at the same time, he has 35 to 40 point ceiling. It certainly is there for him if they're put into a position where they're going to have to throw the ball.
I just worry too. A lot of times, this is kind of like the Marvin Jones thing, right? When Kenny Galladay was knocked out, you just kind of see
the coverage goes.
The wide receiver too starts to they're now the focal point of the defense, and I just don't know how much. Yes, Justin Jefferson is a good wide receiver, but how much has he benefited from the other teams focusing on Thielen?
Do you feel as well, I guess, digging deeper into that without Adam Thielen, could that actually hurt Dalvin Cook? Because
the offense as a whole,
you could be okay, you have Olabisi Johnson and Chad Beebe as your other wide receivers. We're not worried about them.
We're going to stack the box and double team Jefferson.
Yes. And say beat us. And so that is something that I think that could be a ripple effect without Adam Thielen on the field.
I agree.
So,
yeah, I don't want to play. He's 6,300. I don't want to play a popular Justin Jefferson who is going to, like we've said, it going to be the focal point, making most of his money off of go routes and deep plays here. And I think that maybe it does limit Dalvin a little bit, but I still think, even if you're not getting a Justin Jefferson breakaway touchdown, maybe he gets stopped at the 5 or maybe he gets stopped at the 10 or whatever, and they get in the red zone, it's going to be Dalvin all day. Yeah. And then after that, when we're looking at the red zone usage that Thielen and Irv Smith with being out, they're leaving behind 23 red zone targets. I think those could go to Rudolph. Those can go to Cook. Those are going to go to stupid stuff, and you're not going to be able to bank on Jefferson getting that usage too. And not even Ridley, just AJ Brown's around him, Cooper Kupp's around him, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Mike Evans. Devontae Parker at 59. Just crazy who's around him. So it just automatically pivots there. And we talk about this every week, and it's just so, we've been doing this long enough. You just start to get into the heads of the competition, right? And Matty, I know you play in some really confined fields where you're only having to take down, a couple thousand or maybe not even a couple hundred people, depending on the tournaments that you're getting in. And Kevin and I are more so in the larger fields. And when you have to think about 23,000 people or however the case may be, we play in the huddle for our show builds, and that's 14,000 people. And people are looking at this and running back. I want to get in Dalvin. Like Keenan Allen, he's 8K. I want to get him in. Okay, that's 17.5 of your 50K salary. And then you're going to pass on Stephon Diggs too, or you're going to pass on Tyreek Hill too. It's hard to pass up on some of these guys. So you start to think about how other players are building their teams, and especially like Kev alluded to, like at running back with, people will play Gallman, people will play Brian Hill, people will play Joshua Kelly if the whole running back squad's out. People will play Matt Breida, and so if you can think about, okay, I don't want any of those guys, or I only want one of those guys, and start making your builds, I think it's just so much easier. We talk about being contrarian for the smart way, and it's not like playing teams that have Gallman and Breida on them and, I'm going to be contrarian and stack all these guys. It's like, no, find good leverage plays that are in good spots, that are in some of these good games where you can get exposure to. And are you really going to play all of your teams that have Stephon Diggs, or are you going to look at Cole Beasley? Look at the numbers that he's put up in games without John Brown, 6 catches, 100 yards, and hasn't scored a touchdown in 2 of those games, and one where he missed or where he played in a little bit of it and hasn't scored. If Beasley scores, you really are looking at him getting 25 points on DraftKings because of what he's been doing. And they're both going to get 30 on DraftKings, maybe, but I'll be banking on the guy who's cheaper price tag. So. And speaking of guys who are also cheaper, as I toss it back over to you guys, I'm looking at the 5K range, and how is Robert Woods 5,800? How, Jamison Crowder, now we're going to get Sam Darnold back, who we didn't talk about the quarterback position, but it looks like Sam Darnold's back, and Jamison Crowder's 5,400. What's his name? Shepard. I'm looking at Sterling Shepard here, and Kev, you brought up Slayton before, but I'm looking at Shepard in 7 or 8 targets, or if not more, in the past couple of games. He's just been so efficient with these targets. And if he's able to, Cincinnati does limit the deep ball. That's one thing that the secondary has been able to do, is limit that deep ball. So if stuff underneath is available, at 5,100, I could see myself playing some Shepard as well. And then you brought up Pittman before, Matty. Even Tyler Boyd at 5K, it is going to be not Joe Burrow on the other side, but at 5K with Tyler Boyd, we know what he can offer.
T. Higgins too, 4,700.
Yeah, T. Higgins.
I think Brandon Allen's actually going to start, and one of our favorites, Derek Brown. He mentioned to me earlier this week that Allen actually was one of the best deep passers in the league when he got his brief backup stint as a starter. So I don't even hate T. Higgins as a one-off at 4,700, because he's been smashing with Joe Burrow, but he's good enough, he's talented enough that he can go out there and catch a deep pass from a backup quarterback. So yeah, I agree, Ryan. I think the board is just so spread so wide at wide receiver that I don't think it makes a ton of sense to just be playing all these massive chalk guys that are going to keyhole you into one build. It would be different if, maybe some of these guys were 5 to 6K and they kind of offer you some salary relief. But when you pay up for these popular wide receivers, it forces you into playing lower price guys at the other positions, which that's the build everybody's going to have. So it's just trying to be a different build, but like you said, being smart about the players that you're playing and not just being different for the sake of being different.
Do you think that with the way that the Tampa Bay wide receivers are priced, because at 6,100, 6K, and Antonio Brown at 5,700, those seem incredibly too cheap.
I like AB.
Yeah, I thank you, Kev, for bringing that up, because AB in the run back is looking phenomenal. His usage has gone up each of the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, Brady. Somebody said, I saw this on Twitter. They said, you're not going to bring in a certified psychopath and not throw him the football, right?
Right.
If this guy's going to be a super controversial signing, and he's we've seen it now for 3 weeks. AB looks like AB, he looks good out there. And Brady has barely missed him on a couple deep targets where we'd be talking about AB just went for 140 yards and a touchdown on 15 targets, right? So.
Right.
He would be the most popular wide receiver on the slate if he did that last game. And it was he missed him by half a foot on that deep target, and he was wide open.
No tilting. Oh my God!
I had Captain
5,700
AB on Showdown. So I was watching every play.
That frustrated me so much.
Yeah, I agree, Kev. I think that those Bucs receivers, for like all the uncertainty, just play one of Godwin or AB, and even Mike Evans. You know, he can catch 2 touchdowns in any game. But
that's the one thing with the Chiefs too, is that like watching every single snap of every single Chiefs game is the Chiefs have been very susceptible to the deep ball. They seem to get beat multiple times a game deep, and so I do think that's where Mike Evans also becomes interesting, or as somebody that I think people should be looking at, because I do think that after this weekend, there's going to be one of these wide receivers that people will look back on and be like, why the fuck did I not play one of these guys? Because they're just they're all too cheap,
and they're all good.
Yes.
They're all good wide receivers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think I know how you feel, Kev, Matty. I'm not sure about you, but I mean, I would probably Mike Evans is the third for me. Like, I'm just so sick of Mike Evans, dude, with his touchdown equity. Like, just is saving his weeks, really. Is just getting fucking ridiculous. And I would probably, I mean, AB because he's cheaper. And I like the usage that he's seeing. So I'd go him first, then Godwin, then Evans. So I was just curious to see how you guys feel, because a lot of people are still going to go to Evans because of his touchdown that he's seeing.
I would flip it. If it was me, it would be Godwin, then AB, then Evans. Okay. But yeah,
that's what I figured. Before we move on, we're already rolling, and we're already 90 minutes in. So I just want to hit on this real quick. 3K options that get in play, because they're still in play, especially at wide receiver. I feel like is it Keelan Cole and that's it. I feel like are people going to play? And I'm not saying this, but I just want to see how much Sammy Watkins I'm going to have. Are people going to play Demarcus Robinson at what his price is?
No, you kind of take him off. Once Sammy Watkins is back, you pretty much take him out, because so he's still gonna be out there, because I think where people got stuff wrong with McCole Hardman versus Demarcus Robinson. So for this week, if Sammy Watkins wasn't playing, it would have been a McCole Hardman week, and here's why. McCole Hardman is terrible in terms of blocking and being able to help in the run game. And so that's why you see so much Demarcus Robinson on the field, because and that's why he plays so many more snaps. People get tilted because of McCole Hardman not seeing that many snaps. But like last week was a good example where the Chiefs wanted to run the football and McCole Hardman was an afterthought. Like, he was barely even out there the entire game. So, but now with Sammy Watkins back, like, Sammy Watkins excels at doing that. Like, Demarcus Robinson is still going to be out there, but I think that now you see with Sammy back, like, you could see some McCole Hardman mixed in a little bit more frequently than Demarcus Robinson is, because of Sammy Watkins coming back. So I would not play any of Demarcus Robinson. If I wanted to get really wild, it would be McCole Hardman, and I just don't think you have to do it. I would just prefer to play Sammy Watkins at his price, because at the wide receivers that are in the 3K range, because I think you may end up having to play one of them with all the dudes we want to pay up for. Everyone wants to play all the dudes. Like, you're going to have to find somewhere to concede some price. And if you're not going to play one of the 4K running backs, I think the best case scenario then would be trying to fit in one of these wide receivers that are in this range. And Keelan Cole certainly has that kind of ceiling. Like, he can get you 25 at 3,600. And then I think KJ Hamler is a little bit interesting at 3,500. Laviska Shenault also as well at 3,300 makes some sense with no Chark and no Chris Conley. I think you could do that if you really wanted to. And then I think Jalen Guyton is going to be a forgotten name at 3,100. Who nobody's going to want to play him. He is kind of boom or bust. We saw his usage go up a little bit, then it went back down last week with only one target. But in this game, if you're wanting to make a Justin Herbert stack and you want to play obviously Keenan Allen, and if you can't fit in Mike Williams or Hunter Henry, which we could talk about at tight end, $3,100 Jalen Guyton I think is also in tournaments. I think is a way you could go too.
Yeah, I was looking at Guyton too, Kev, because I had some of him last week. Obviously, didn't work out, but he's always been cheap. And you look at these games where, if he's able to take a long one to the house there when he had the 70-yard touchdown, had 384 and one, and then had the one catch for 72. I mean, paying out 14 points. That's already, just on one play, that's 5X at the position. So I do think it makes some sense to play him there. If you, Tre'Davious White, I don't think has a slot snap on the other side. So he could be just seeing Mike Williams and trying to limit him. So I don't know how much Mike Williams I would have at all, even.
And really, it was just a bad luck. I mean, because if you look at last week, Jalen Guyton played 86% of the snaps. He ran a season high in routes. He ran 50 routes last week. He just didn't see the target. So, he's out there. I mean, he played 86, 67, 89, 85, 65, 90. He's out there playing a ton of snaps. He's getting a lot of routes. So, I mean, he's out there. And I think, if he can, get loose on one deep, I think he could pay off at that price.
No, that's fair. I like that in game stacks there. I just wanted to talk about the 3K receivers because I thought some of those were interesting as well. Let's move it on to tight end as we're getting ready to wrap up the pod here with the tight end and defense position. To appreciate everybody who's rocking along. DGen Nation Pod at DGen Nation Pod on Twitter is where you can find us. Let's talk about tight end here. And you guys were talking about it offline, more so than I even was. But even just looking at this slate, it's like, damn. I wish the Steelers and Ravens game was playing so that I could play Ebron here. I didn't really feel good about playing him on a 3-gamer, but on this 11-game slate, I could really use that $4,100 price tag for him. And you're looking at, you got the top, Kelsey and Waller. No more Mark Andrews, so you could stretch it out. So really only 2 tight ends that are going to be 6K and above this week. Everybody's under 5K. I mean, I could see a lot of people playing Hunter Henry. Evan Ingram's always going to garner popularity. Rob Gronkowski in that game. If you don't want to guess on a receiver, but you want to have a run back, I could see people playing him. Gesicki, now he's going to, with Fitzpatrick, I guess Gesicki could be interesting, right? Because I saw you having this conversation, Matty, about you didn't want to have to guess about usage, but I do feel like if it's going to be Gesicki, are we not going to see as much of the Adam Shaheen and D. Smythe or whoever it was? Can we just lean on him? Because there's no Preston Williams now. Before there was, we were dealing with Preston being there and taking some of those snaps. I could see myself talking myself into Gesicki if I needed to. Then you got Noah Fant, you got Jonnu, Hayden Hurst, who's questionable with the ankle, but if he plays, he should garner some popularity. And then Austin Hooper, yet again, he comes in at 3,800, 5 catches for 33 last week. Still wasn't enough. I mean, people definitely wanted Goddard in that same game for, I think he was cheaper or maybe $100 more. But just 2 disappointing games against Houston and Philly. But now going against Jacksonville, I could talk myself into him. I think Higbee's banged up, so Gerald Everett at 3,300. That's interesting. Colts tight ends, what the hell are we doing with them? They're all healthy, can't play them. And then you got Kyle Rudolph, who is 2,800 against Minnesota now without Adam Thielen, which I think is interesting. Matty, what say you at tight end? What are you doing?
Tight end's awful this week. It's tough. I mean, obviously Hunter Henry's in a great spot. I will say I'm not gonna have the salary to fit in Kelsey or Waller, so I will not be paying up for those guys. I just think so many things can go wrong. We've seen Travis Kelsey on an absolute streak right now that he's never been on, where he's just smashing week in and week out. But I think he's gonna kind of fall back down to earth at some point, and I don't want to be on him when that happens. So I'm just gonna let the field play him at 7K. And even if he goes for 25 points, as long as my cheaper tight end can get me 15, I still have a shot because I'll be able to pay up elsewhere. So
okay. I
just don't see Kelsey having a 35-point ceiling, 35 to 40 to where, I would have to have him or else I'm toast. So I will not be paying up this week. So Hunter Henry is probably the top that I would go to just because I think Buffalo is going to end up pushing the Chargers. I think Gronk is interesting as a run back against Kansas City. If you don't want to play wide receiver roulette there because he's had high red zone usage. Then you've got Gesicki, who you mentioned. I do like him. Like you said, Preston Williams had been in the picture until recently. And also Tua has been in the picture until recently. So
Right.
if Fitz is in and Gaskin's out and we have no Preston Williams, obviously, I think Gesicki becomes a second option against a Jets defense where, Gesicki, he's not always playing in line. He plays big slot. So he's going to get matchups with, nickel cornerbacks and safeties and things like that. So I think that he makes a ton of sense at 4,300. I like the Hooper call. He's due for a big game eventually. I just don't know how much Cleveland's going to need to throw this week. So he's definitely touchdown dependent. And then I do like Gerald Everett if Higbee's out, obviously. And then the other injury to monitor, Jordan Reed is questionable with an illness. If he's out, Ross Dwelly at 2,900 becomes a salary saver. But yeah, outside of that, man, tight end's pretty gross this week.
Kev, what are you doing at tight end here for the week?
I mean, on teams that I'm not running Tyreek, it'll be Travis Kelce. If I could figure out a way to get Darren Waller at a 6K, I would, but I just don't think I would be able to get there. So I agree on that. And then Henry, Evan Ingram, I think are great plays. And then past that, like if Hayden Hurst doesn't play, do you have any interest in Jaden Graham?
I think you have to, just
at
because
2,500.
Just because of the limited options. I like that call.
I mean,
Atlanta's going to have nobody else.
Right. And then, I mean, we saw last year, I mean, he is somewhat explosive. I know last year he had that 50-yard reception. I'm almost positive when that happened. Like, I'm trying to think back. Like, Matty, I think you were actually on him that week because of, like, air yards and everything else of what he was doing. And he had that 50-yarder, and then I think he almost scored. And it was like –
He did.
Yeah. But
he's a very athletic, very good pass-catching tight end.
Yes. And so I think that he would be somebody that I think you could look at if you're looking to save some salary in that price range at 25. And then I also think that Tyler Eifert isn't a crazy play either at 2,600 because the last 3 weeks that he's played, he's gotten 5, 4, and 5 targets. Without Chark, without Conley, like they're going to need somebody inside the red zone. I think that's where Tyler Eifert would come in as well. And so I think that he is also an interesting play at his price tag at 2,600. So if I'm paying down,
I like that.
That's probably another place that I would look to go to because Cleveland's also been terrible against tight ends.
And also you get usually backup quarterbacks. They want to just attack the short middle of the field. A lot of high percentage throws. So there usually is a backup quarterback to tight end correlation.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it feels just
Eifert does lead the team in red zone targets too. I just pulled it up. He's tied with Chark with 8.
Oh boy.
So yeah, I don't hate that at all. 2,600. That opens up a lot.
Cleveland or tight ends against Cleveland. Yeah. 9 targets the past 2 games.
And now they're without Chark and without Conley. And so it's really just Eifert, Cole, and Shenault in the pass game.
Right. And what was Visca's injury? Was it like a knee or something? I just was curious just to know.
It was lower body, yeah.
Okay. What he was dealing with coming back off. A hamstring, so soft tissue.
Yeah.
But he's been out for a little bit. So, yeah, man, I think that people will make plays that just aren't correlated here in the tight end area. And I just don't, I'll just take a guy who I can bet on the usage with and some of these guys who have solid red zone roles and take a chance there or just pay all the way down so I can fit more guys in. Speaking of trying to be able to fit guys into this lineup here, let's move it over to defense and see what we're doing here. And we got Dolphins at the top. Only 4K defense this week with the Steelers and Ravens game being off the slate. You got Saints at 3,800 against Locke on the road, though. But we know Locke loves to turn that ball over, so that'll be interesting. You got Rams at 3,700, who have been, doing pretty well the past 4 weeks, actually. that you're able to pay up for. Giants have been priced up because no Joe Burrow. They're 3,200. I think they'll be popular as people will look to play there, and they're kind of middle of the road there. But I'm going to scroll the way down here, and with all the guys,
$2,200 Broncos.
$2,200 Broncos. I know you're going there.
Yeah, $2,200 Broncos was definitely where I want to go. I mean, I'm looking at what they were able to do last week against Miami in a home matchup. And like I was talking about the Taysom Hill fumbles, and I'm just really confident of him as a passer. So hopefully they can limit scoring to a certain degree, and then, get themselves into a situation where they can, have him being able to throw and just, force them into ways that are turnovers. But I also am interested at just $100 more in the Raiders defense going against Atlanta, with so many guys who are out there on the other side. And I was just talking about, not having Gurley as well too. So them being limited in moving the ball and not being able to, Matt Ryan still being able to throw a lot. Like Matt Ryan he throws picks. I mean, he throws them in bunches. And this Raiders defense, they -2 against KC, but against Denver, they had 16, Chargers 4, Cleveland 9 on the road. They've had some solid games in the past couple. Now that the defense is getting healthy, I know they were dealing with the COVID issues and everything like that. So they're playing this Atlanta team that I'm not scared of. It's inside. I mean, they're just $100 more than the Broncos too. So I like getting some leverage on them if they're not going to be popular. Kev, where are you at defense outside of Broncos, or just Broncos and log out for you?
I mean, the Browns are certainly in play at 3,100 against Jacksonville and Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon's fucking awful. Yep. And then,
definitely, Browns are definitely in play.
The Giants at 3,200 is certainly a way. And I really don't want to go any higher than that. Like, if you had the money and you had money sitting around and you were able to play somebody like the Rams, I think the Rams are 3,700 against San Francisco. With their defense, the way they've been playing, I think is something you can do. But I would just much prefer to pay down. Like, the Broncos really stood out to me when I saw them at 2,200, especially at home. I was like, yeah, I'm probably going to be playing a lot of Broncos this week just because of everything that you can do and what that opens up to being able to play them. Because I think if you do that, and then if you played a tight end like Tyler Eifert or something like that, then it kind of really opens up the entire slate for you.
Oh yeah. Lots of stuff you can do with this salary. Matty, you're feeling the same way too there, Broncos. And I know you're pretty much, you come on one defense and you stick with it. So will you get anywhere else in your builds, do you think?
I originally tried to get the Browns in, and I just couldn't make them work. It's going to be Broncos for me. If you just look at all the sack totals for all these teams around the Broncos, I mean, they've got 28, and then all these other teams are in like the 10 to 15 sacks range. So I think they're mispriced, and it's because they're playing New Orleans. But Taysom Hill can be turnover prone. He makes a lot of aggressive plays, especially chucking the ball down the field. I think that there's between that and a lot of rushes, he can fumble the ball. So I think Denver at home makes a ton of sense at 2,200.
Yeah, man. And I always just like it's really hard for me to play a defense the week after they just spiked off. And that was the Browns last week, getting 20 points without Myles Garrett being in that game. And so I feel like people are going to look at that. Now they're playing Jacksonville, and I just don't want to take on that ownership level there at that price, because what they were able to do very outside of the sacks was very fluky. So, yeah, man, I like paying down, getting some stuff on the belts, and that's pretty much it for the Week 12 main slate, guys. Appreciate you guys rocking with us. We're going to get into our Week 12 main slate build as we usually do here. $5 single entry, the 60K huddle there on DraftKings. We got to pick 9 spots. There's 3 of us. 3 of us get to go. Kevin, you started off, man. How we doing this team?
Well, let's just lock in Pat Mahomes.
There we go. I don't mind it. I like Tyreek Hill this week, so I'm gonna go second and play Tyreek and leave it on Matty third.
I'm gonna pick the run back then, Antonio Brown.
Let's do it. So we got Patrick Mahomes, Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill. That leaves us at a 28 5 for remaining salary total and $47.50 per player left.
Do I want to go Wayne Gallman here? Give me Sammy.
I like it.
Okay.
I think if you play Mahomes, you've got to play 2 pass catchers with him because the only way he gets there is throwing 4 touchdowns.
I like it. So 47.60. Let's see what we got here. God, yeah, running back is so fucking ugly this week. Oh, Jesus.
It's bad.
It is fucking bad.
I don't think we could do Cook, but I think we could do something like Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I was just looking at that to see if we could. Let's see what we could do playing around with Chubb, because I do want a back that I can feel pretty confident in and getting 100 in a score without playing Chubb. So Chubb's in there. That's 41.75 per position, 16,700 for the remaining salary. Running back, tight end, flex, defense left.
God, this is awful.
It really doesn't make you feel good about how builds are going to go this week. It's great. And dude, I'm just looking at this team. Like, what are people doing at running back if they want to play Allen and Diggs? It's going to be gross.
Oh. Could you play both Chubb and Hunt on the same team? Or no?
You could.
Is that too thin?
Baker's shown you no reason to think. I mean, Hunt could be the one to catch the touchdown like it was last week, and Chubb could run it in.
How would you feel about this? What if we went Derrick Henry?
I was looking at that.
And then we could go Broncos D.
And Eifert, and that leaves you 4K at flex.
Yes.
That's what I've got plugged in at the moment. I just didn't know who you guys would pick at 4K.
All right, so we got Chubb and Henry as the running backs.
Yeah.
Bronco, Eifert at tight end.
Yeah. And then 4K.
Which I guess if we had to, we could always play one of the 4K running backs that's actually out there. But
yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Where are we at?
I mean, you can play Keelan Cole.
Well, I was going to say you could do the mini stack there with Chubb and Keelan.
Oh, but then you've got Eifert too. I don't want 2 Jacksonville guys.
So it leaves you enough if you wanted to, instead of playing Eifert, playing Rudolph. Because he's cheap enough that you could fit him in at 2,800.
So you're going Cole and Rudolph?
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
That makes sense, I think.
That works for me. God, running back is awful, dude. Like, I was about to pick Nyheim Hines, but he's legit got a chance to score 3 points.
Yeah, it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough this week in builds there. And I like that we did that. I mean, we're still getting 2 very high-profile running backs with huge upsides there with a Mahomes stack. That's really what you want to be trying to do here on the slate. And speaking of that team, that's going to be Mahomes, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Tyreek Hill, Antonio Brown, Sammy Watkins, Kyle Rudolph, Keelan Cole, and Broncos D. 200 salary left on the table. That is being entered in, and that is going to cap it off on the Week 12 main slate. You guys got a 2 for this week here from the DJ Nation, powered by the Fantasy Authority. Thanks to everybody who was rocking with us for the Thanksgiving slate earlier this week, and now we got the Week 12 main slate here coming at you. as we record this on Friday, a little bit later than you guys are used to getting it, but hopefully still plenty of time to listen to the content, be able to build your teams, be able to get this money. Like I said at the beginning of the show, guys, we're on YouTube, we're on Periscope, we're on Twitch. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the channels to get all this content as we go live. We appreciate that. We got a couple more shows left for the regular season. We're going to be doing stuff for the postseason as well, too, playoffs. So make sure you guys are geared in for that. As I also mentioned, we got the Slack chat that's still going. If you want to get in there, if you're not already, please hit us up at DJ Nation Pod or one of our social handles, and we'll make sure to get you guys in there. You guys got any final words for the people as we sign off here?
Good luck picking running backs. I hope you pick the right ones.
Godfather, what say you?
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree. The news, we still have a lot of news to come in, whether it's Austin Eckler and if he plays, or if Josh Jacobs gets ruled out, then Devontae Booker changes kind of the outlook on it. But I would go underweight on Brian Hill for sure. I would not be out here. I don't want to hear none of this Brian Hill free square bullshit that you're going to hear on other podcasts that you listen to this week. As you listen this weekend, there are going to be people that are going to say that Brian Hill's a free square, and it's fucking ridiculous. He's not a free square.
Right. And actually, it's going to be interesting to see. Kev, I know you don't play, and Matty, I know you don't play that much at all either. But it's going to be funny to see cash builds this week because of guys like Brian Hill, because of the injuries that are happening and that we're waiting to see. So this is going to be a funny week to just kind of see how people play their cash lines and see what the cash line actually is and how people's teams are going when they're tilting if both Keenan Allen and Diggs fail. So, yeah, and as I sign off, too, I'll echo what Kevin says. Just make sure you're paying attention to the news. Obviously, it's a holiday week, and maybe you guys aren't doing as much stuff to prepare as you would be in normal weeks before. But as you get into Sunday, just make sure you're watching the injury reports and make sure you guys are knowing who's in, because there is some leverage to be had in these spots as we get people rolled in. So keep an eye on that if you're playing, and just get that money on Sunday, guys. We will catch you guys next week for the Week 13 DFS main slate. Until then, signing off for Matty at Matty DFS is where you can find him on Twitter, Kevin at FantasyRap13, and myself, Ryan Alexander _W. It's the DJ Nation Pod powered by the TFA. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, peace.